Has a friend ever done or said something that just straight up ended the friendship? What happened? I was playing video games with my best friend while my wife was sitting beside me, reading a book. She was happy just to be spending time with me. My friend had a baby who was not even a year old, and he placed the child in a bouncing chair while we played. He mentioned that the baby loves the chair and spends a lot of time in it, so he continued playing. The baby started to whine a bit, but my friend ignored it. I thought we would reach a good stopping point in the game and he would then attend to his child. However, several opportunities to pause the game had passed, and the baby was now fussing even more. My friend then asked my wife to feed and change the baby, saying that the baby was probably hungry and had soiled his diaper. I was shocked by his request and turned off the game, suggesting that he should take care of his own child instead of playing all day. My response was perhaps a bit harsh, but he seemed upset that I had told him to prioritize his child over gaming. We left soon after, and I haven't spoken to him in 3 years. Another story involves a former best friend of over 6 years who contacted my ex-girlfriend the day we broke up. He sent her a message asking if she wanted to hang out at his house. At the time, he also had a girlfriend who was pregnant with his child. My ex showed me and his girlfriend the messages, but decided to confront him together. We showed up at his place, and as soon as he saw the three of us, he knew he was in trouble but tried to act surprised. He kept defending himself by saying his little brother, who was only a kid, had sent those messages to my ex. In the end, his pregnant girlfriend left him, and he's now paying child support. He moved out of state a month later. My ex and I reconciled and are now married, 3 months into our marriage. Damn, looks like your best friend was the only one who took that L. Everyone else took a dub. Well, except for the mom. Story 2. I spent an entire day using my truck and trailer to help a friend transport tables, chairs, and a large archway to the church for his wedding. I was supposed to be a groomsman. He thanked me for the help and gave me $20 for the gas, but then he asked if it would be okay for Brent, his soon-to-be wife's best guy friend, to take my spot in the wedding party. He wanted to see if any of her cousins had backed out and if there was an open seat somewhere. This was the day before the wedding. I had been best friends with this guy since kindergarten, but his wife didn't like me because I knew about her past from a different group of friends. This was her attempt to push me out. He waited until the last minute to ask for my help because no one else would assist him. I haven't spoken to him since. And I heard that his wife quit her job and spends her days at home while he's at work. They seem to deserve each other. Another story involves a friend whose house I've visited a few times for game nights. These nights usually involve drinking and playing cards. However, one evening he hit me because I accidentally touched his hat. What surprised me most was that they didn't even apologize. It felt like I was back in high school. It was truly unbelievable. I gave them time to realize what had happened, but it took the person 3 months to notice we were no longer friends on social media. She's now trying to add me back, but I'm not interested. Another story is about an ex-friend who started asking me for inappropriate images, using the excuse that he was joking. This was out of character for him, as we had been friends for many years. I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt and made it clear that if he didn't stop, I would end our friendship. So one day I received an image text from him. It was a picture of his Johnson outlined in gym shorts, followed by a sad attempt at fishing for compliments and a pathetic backpedal. Our friendship of over 10 years ended, but not before I expressed my disapproval and blocked him. Story 3. I stayed overnight with one of my best friends. Throughout the night, she was on her phone, not paying attention to anything I said. I tested this by saying something that couldn't possibly be funny, and she laughed without looking up from her phone. This has been an ongoing issue for about a year. She wanted to go to sleep early because she was tired, so I lied and said I needed to go home. She was fine with it, as all she seemed to want was to sleep or text. Not even an hour after I got home, I saw her Snapchat story showing her at another friend's house, drinking and having a great time. It was hurtful that she did this and didn't care if I saw it. That was when I decided we were no longer best friends. Still feel sad about it because we had been close since junior high, but some people change for the worse. Another story is about my cousin and me. We were inseparable as teens. After he returned from his mission, I visited him for a few days, excited to see him. I paid for all the fun activities we did together. However, when his childhood friend and I tried to get him to go for a walk to a cave we used to visit, he said some hurtful things to me, including hurtful remarks because of my identity. I didn't say a word as I drove him home immediately. I told him to get out and I haven't spoken to him in the 8 years since then. Another story is about a girl named Alice, who was my best friend for several years. I just ended a relationship with a guy who developed a bad habit, leading to our painful breakup. I started dating a woman I met through Alice. Before I started spending time with this woman, Alice was becoming increasingly territorial. Eventually, our relationship became more serious and Alice called my girlfriend and told her a lie about something I had supposedly said. Fortunately, my girlfriend knew better and called me immediately. I was able to clear up the misunderstanding and mend the situation. However, my friendship with Alice was over as soon as I found out what she had done. Story 4. My husband had a best friend for over a decade. He asked this friend to be his best man at her wedding, and the friend agreed. 2 weeks before the wedding, the friend asked if he could bring a date. We were surprised because we didn't know he was dating anyone. We inquired and said, sure. It turned out that the date was the wife of one of our mutual friends, with whom he was having a fling. We all disliked her, but his intention to bring her as his date was the end for my husband. The friend said he wouldn't come to the wedding if he couldn't bring the woman he was cheating with. That was a deal breaker, and they haven't been friends since. I ended a friendship with someone who told me, your problem is you have too much humanity. You care about people too much. When I asked if she cared about her fellow human beings, she replied, don't know them. Why do you think I carry a weapon? We were in a heated discussion, and I needed a break. The look of triumph on her face, as if she had broken me and won the argument, was enough for me. Her winning was more important than our friendship, and I realized she was not someone I wanted to know. She had admitted to me that she lacks empathy and compassion. I should have taken her seriously. I thought she was being hard on herself, but I was wrong. Another story is about a surprise birthday party we planned for a friend. Let's call her BG, birthday girl. We found out it was her dream to have a surprise party, as she had never experienced one before. My husband organized a big gathering at another friend's house. Invited lots of people, and we bought plenty of food and even barbecue equipment. We went all out to make it special. BG accidentally found out about the party a few weeks beforehand and was thrilled, even breaking down in tears because no one had ever done something like this for her before. However, 2 days before the party, she texted my husband saying she had changed plans and was going bowling with another friend instead. She invited us to join her. We were shocked and upset, as many people were already committed to coming to the party. We went ahead with the party without her, and she sent us angry messages because we didn't show up for the bowling. As a result, no one is friends with her anymore. Story 5. I was friends with my best friend since we were kids, until right around when I graduated from college. It was exceptional at what he did and landed a high-paying job immediately after graduation from a top 10 university in his field. With a 3.9 GPA, graduating with honors, he came from a loving family with supportive parents and siblings. He was a completely ordinary guy. However, after graduating, he didn't know how to manage his money well. He started spending money on escort services weekly and experimented with bad habits. Our friendship drifted apart due to his habits, and I later learned that he had taken his own life shortly before he moved overseas. Another story from my past involves a guy I'll call Alex, and it took place when we were both teenagers. Alex was a band enthusiast, infatuated with the girls in the color guard and a particular girl in his band group. I was more introverted, expressing myself through punk music, and I had a crush on him that lasted over a year. Our mutual friends were aware of my feelings and encouraged me to pursue a relationship with him. I confessed my feelings to Alex the day before this incident, and I built up this fantasy of what our relationship would be like. He gave me an honest answer, which I respect now, but back then, I didn't want to accept his rejection. At the start of lunch, I sat down next to Alex, and he acted as if nothing had happened the day before. I couldn't pretend everything was normal and confronted him. I expressed how I thought we would be great together, and I said something along the lines of, I can't keep living like this, just being your friend. He responded, I don't live. I don't care. I was embarrassed and ran to the bathroom to cry. In my mind, I thought I loved him because he made me feel normal. Alex and someone I thought was my friend began to torment me, saying I wasn't welcome and calling me a loser. I heard rumors that Alex had labeled me a crazy girl. We were all in the same honors classes, so I couldn't escape the tormenting without changing my entire school trajectory. The story takes a dramatic turn when the school's guidance counselor, who was friends with Alex's mom, called my dad to the school for a meeting with the administration. He wanted my dad to silence me up and make me leave Alex alone, claiming I was causing trouble for one of their brightest students and threatening to involve the police with the surveillance footage. After that day, I was hospitalized 3 times for attempting to end it all. I had a panic attack where I almost hurt Alex, and I openly cried in front of people I barely knew at school. The tormenting continued, and I eventually had to move towns and change schools to escape it. I've forgiven Alex and made peace with what happened. I've since found religion, and I'm on medication. The positive outcome is that a friend from that time has become a partner, and we recently expressed our love for each other. Damn Alexes. Story 6. I have a recent and serious event in my life. A former friend, whom I've known for years, is my neighbor, and we grew up together. He was a normal person with good morals until he discovered social media. He used YOLO on Snapchat and Instagram, mainly Snapchat. During this time, his parents were often not at home or busy with their baby, leaving him with a lot of free time, which he spent posting on YOLO. Before social media, he had an odd fascination with the Joker character and would act strangely towards strangers and people he knew, including his girlfriend, which eventually led to their breakup. He posted disturbing content on Snapchat, and I grew tired of it. He even made threats to harm others. I took screenshots of his posts and showed them to the school administration for help. He was suspended for a significant period and stopped his harmful behavior. I'm no longer friends with him because I can't risk him finding out and potentially hurting me. Another story involves a girl I helped when she was going through a very difficult time. I offered her a place to stay, provided food, and ensured she attended school. I lost many of my old friends in the process, but prioritized their safety. Over the years, we've had disagreements and more bad things happened to her. I moved to another state for work to address my own health issues. I've struggled with my mental health longer than I've known her, but I didn't want to burden her with my problems. I moved back to my hometown last year to help my ill father and support her. Recently, my state has worsened significantly. I've experienced dark thoughts, instability, and extreme loneliness. I reached out to my friend, asking if I could talk to her about how I was feeling. I sent 2 messages but received responses like, "I can't deal with this," and "You're so pushy, I hate it, you're my friend." She said she'd text me when she felt like it. My only real friend of the past 5 years, whom I care for deeply and would support no matter what, no longer talks to me because I've been struggling with health issues and sought her support. Story 7. When I saw my friend Juan chase after someone with a weapon because of some trouble he was getting involved in, it was a turning point in our friendship. I had known Juan since kindergarten, and we were very close as we grew up. We were somewhat outcasts in our class, known as the kids who always excelled academically, along with our other friend, Nick. We shared memories like visiting the circus and creating a comic book together about a character named Tom. Taking turns to draw and continue the story, it was a cherished pastime. I wish I still had that notebook, but it was taken from us in the 4th grade and never returned. Juan and I had sleepovers almost every weekend, and he always joined my family's camping trips during the summer. He was like a brother to me, as I was an only child. In the 6th grade, our parents transferred us out of our grade school because they were dissatisfied with the administration and believed we could receive a better education elsewhere. Despite living on the south side of Chicago, I ended up at a school on the north side with another friend, Manny, while Juan attended a school closer to his home. Juan and I still spent time together, but our paths began to diverge. I noticed that his new school was influencing him, and by the 8th grade, he had become part of a group. At the time, I was deeply interested in graffiti and rap music, so we still shared common interests despite the changes. The last time I saw Juan was at his graduation party. After the family celebration, we hung out with some of his neighborhood friends. Then, Juan and I decided to go for a walk. I had a backpack filled with spray paint, so we headed to the train tracks near his house to tag drains and walls. I painted my name and he tagged his group symbols. While we were painting a wall, we heard a voice from below. The man was yelling at us, and it infuriated Juan. I'd never seen him like that before. He seemed like a different person. He started chasing the man, and instinctively, I followed. The man ran, and Juan pursued him with me trailing behind. After a few minutes, Juan lost sight of the man and stopped. When I caught up to him, I saw an angry look in his eyes and realized he was holding a weapon. It was then that I understood this was not the one I had grown up with. He talked about finding the man with a few others as they had unresolved issues. I managed to convince him to let it go for the time being and return to relax. We did, and I stayed at his house just as I had done many times before. However, after that night, I wanted no part in the lifestyle he was embracing. Although we still spoke on the phone occasionally, we never hung out again. As we entered high school, we completely lost touch. I often thought of him and wondered what had become of him. So I searched for him in Google and Facebook, but never found any results. Until a few years ago, when I finally located him by using his middle name in a search, I discovered several photos from his various encounters with the law, mostly for possession. It saddened me, as he was a very intelligent person, but I was also relieved that I hadn't followed the same path. Story 8. I was part of a large friend group where everyone knew each other. A couple of them decided to invite Troublemaker to hang out with us. Troublemaker began to openly insult one friend, using derogatory language about his orientation. My girlfriend was the first to stand up for her friend. Troublemaker got upset, refused to apologize, and left. Some friends were rude to my girlfriend, me and our friend, blaming us for causing drama. Our friends stopped hanging out with the group because it was clear they were siding with Troublemaker. During another gathering, Troublemaker showed up with his friend, whom we'll call Gremlin. Gremlin made inappropriate comments to my girlfriend, challenging me with his gaze. After he described what he'd do to her if he found her in a dark alley, she told him off and we left. Later, a friend texted me, telling us not to hang out with the group again. The others started ignoring us. Then the intimidation began. They would show up in groups at places they knew we'd be without speaking to us, just being loud and disruptive. This behavior got them banned from many local spots after numerous complaints. About a year later, a former friend reached out while intoxicated, feeling lonely and guilty. The friend group had fallen apart after they were banned from our usual hangouts. Blame was thrown around, causing constant drama, and the group split into factions until they all disliked each other. Troublemaker moved away, and Gremlin ended up in jail. My girlfriend and I had no interest in reconciling with the group. Another story involves my best friend from high school, who had strange authoritarian tendencies. He never admitted when he was wrong, blindly supported the US government and police, and believed grass was the worst thing imaginable. He once said that anyone who had ever used grass should be imprisoned for life to protect them, knowing that my family and I had tried it. The last straw came after my first attempt to end it all. He showed no emotion when I told him I had tried to harm myself. He only asked if I'd used grass within the last month. When I said yes, he blamed it on the grass and refused to discuss it further. I wasn't sure how to feel that day, but we didn't speak much after that. Our families used to be very close, so this was significant. I messaged him during my weak point years later, and he actually apologized for the first time since I'd known him. We're not friends now, but I'm glad the resentment is gone. Story 9. My best friend in college was a girl named Gina. We got along well, often getting together to have deep conversations while enjoying a few drinks. We did everything together, exploring and experiencing the world on our own for the first time, typical college activities. Gina enjoyed tripping and living in shared communities with people she considered deep. I preferred drinking, partying, and having my own apartment with a private room and bathroom. I don't think there's anything wrong with either preference. She left to pursue a law degree in a city about 3 hours away, while I started working as a chemical engineer in her college town. We stayed in touch, but I knew she was busy with school, which wasn't a big deal. I visited her a few times, but she never came to see me. I didn't mind at the time, but later I noticed this pattern. When she returned for a summer internship, I made an effort to text her, call her, and take her out for happy hour at bars she chose. I treated her to dinner at trendy restaurants and paid for everything since I had a job and made a good income. However, every time we met up, she would complain for hours about drama or school, and I couldn't get a word in. I was always the one asking to hang out, while she prioritized different guys each month. Once, while out with other friends at a bar for a birthday celebration, I dressed up a bit more than usual with cute lashes and a nice dress. I felt great and happened to run into Gina. I overheard her telling my boyfriend, now my husband, that she didn't want to hang around because I was wearing lashes. There's nothing wrong with putting a little extra effort and feeling beautiful, so her comment wasn't called for. Eventually, I grew tired of making all the effort. I stepped back and decided to wait for her to initiate hanging out. She ended up moving back to finish her law degree at her college in the town where I live. 6 months went by, and I received a single text from her asking if I was mad at her because her sister had acted silly the last time we hung out. She also asked if I had any attractive friends who might be interested in a no-strings-attached relationship with her. I never responded and haven't spoken to her since. It's been about 3 to 4 years now, and I'm still really sad about it. I thought we had a great friendship, but I valued her much more than she valued me. Yeah, one-sided always hurts. Story 10. I had a friend who was in an unhappy situation. He lived at home and had just been laid off from a job he loved. He was pretty unhappy. The problem was that he was difficult about it. He had no education and was incredibly unhealthy, but he would not accept a position that paid less than $60,000 a year to start. I'd find something close to his home and that was near that pay, and he would turn it down. It was just unpleasant all the time, and I tried to be patient. I have a rule with all my friends. If you're rude to me, that's one thing, but if you're in my home and you're unreasonably rude to my other guests, then we're done. He made the mistake of bringing his negative attitude and constantly criticizing my other friend and my wife. At the end of the evening, I simply never contacted him again. I never said anything. I just ended the friendship and moved on. It's been 3 years, and if I've heard correctly from others, he's still unemployed and still lives with his mom. Another story is about my best friend of over 15 years. She had been pulling stunts for a while, but I always forgave her because she had a tough time with her parents during her teen years. In her mid-20s, a childhood friend passed away suddenly. He was more like a big brother to me and was my brother's best friend. It shocked my whole family, who were also close to her. It was an extremely hard time because he passed away so young. The funeral came and went, and she never showed up, not even a text. A week later, I received a text saying, "Phone was out of charge. So upset about last week. How are you?" I couldn't respond and explain how inappropriate that text was, so I didn't reply. It became clear that I had made the right decision to cut her off, and my parents and brother ended up in the hospital a few months after the funeral due to a series of unrelated incidents. New and old friends came out of nowhere to help me, but she never showed up for any of my family. It's been 6 years, and honestly, it was the best decision I've ever made for myself. Another story was when I was at a bar with some friends, when a guy showed up who made one of my friends, let's call her Anne, uncomfortable. There's a history between the guy and Anne that isn't my place to share, but she had recently filed a police report against him. When Anne saw him, she was clearly upset and hid in the bathroom. One of my other friends spoke to the bouncer and got the guy kicked out. Now here's the unfortunate part. One of our other friends, Sarah, started loudly telling the table that Anne was overreacting and that it was unfair that the guy got kicked out. I was shocked and walked away from the situation. The next day, I texted Sarah and told her that I really wasn't okay with what she had said and tried to explain why it was problematic. She refused to apologize, continued to blame Anne, and then, once we all stopped talking to her, she texted Anne and blamed her for ruining her year. I blocked and deleted her information. Story 11. I met Lisa at university while we were both working on our master's degrees. We lived in the inner city and would often hang out, sharing a love for good food and enjoying a bit too much wine. However, things changed when she became pregnant and moved to the suburbs. It took me almost 2 hours to get to her new place using public transport, and even longer on weekends. Despite the inconvenience, I made consistent efforts to visit her for birthdays, dinners, her baby shower, and just to spend time together. I even babysat a couple of times. Occasionally, I would stay overnight, but most of the time I would return home. One night, I missed the last tram home by just a few seconds and found myself stranded in a sketchy area late at night. I had to wait for an Uber, which ended up costing over $100. I joked about the incident the next morning and we laughed it off. I didn't think much of it and continued to attend events at her place. Then one evening, Lisa messaged me to inform me that I was not invited to her birthday dinner that weekend and that I was no longer welcome at any of her events until I had an alternative method of transportation. She claimed that my commute home was causing her significant stress and that she was tired of me dismissing her suggestions. This was the first I had heard of any of these concerns, as we had never discussed them before. She told me I was welcome to discuss it further if I wished, but she hoped I understood why I was no longer welcome at her house. This message came in May 2018, and I never responded. We haven't spoken since, and she has made no attempt to contact me. I didn't respond because her birthday dinner had been planned for weeks, giving her ample time to discuss her concerns with me and find a resolution, rather than simply uninviting me to her events. Story 12. I had a friend whom we'll call Emily, who constantly borrowed money from me in high school and never paid me back. Each time she'd promise to repay me, spinning elaborate stories about how she'd return the money as soon as she received her allowance and then later claimed she'd already paid me back when I asked for the money. Her begging became so relentless that I stopped carrying cash to school to avoid her constant requests for money. If she heard change jingling in my pocket, she'd pester me for an hour until I lent her some money. It got to the point where I felt I had to hide any snacks I bought just to avoid her requests. Our friendship mostly ended by the next year due to various issues, including fights. However, I guess I still held on to some hope for our friendship. A mutual friend, whom we'll call Sarah, asked me if I could talk to Emily because she had borrowed a favorite belt and some money and Sarah wanted them back. My locker was right next to Emily's, so I agreed to ask. When I inquired about Sarah's money and belt, Emily's response was clear. I only repay friends. Any lingering hope I had for a friendship vanished with that statement. I told Sarah what Emily had said and offered to repay her myself, but I made it clear that I would never speak to Emily again. And I never did. 4 years of friendship ended with that sentence, as it revealed that she had never considered me a friend, only a source of money. Another story involves a friend named Jessica, with whom I was very close from 5th grade onwards. Our lives took very different paths. I had a supportive family, did well in school, and went to college far away. She dropped out of high school and started working. I was there for her when she met her first husband, through her pregnancy and her divorce. I listened as she made bad decisions and went through rebounds. I worked hard, saved money, and enjoyed spending it on travel. Once while on vacation with a mutual friend whom we'll call Taylor, Jessica sent me a 3-page email listing all the ways I had betrayed her and been a bad friend, especially by going on this vacation and other trips. I was upset, but Taylor pointed out that she hadn't received any such message from Jessica. This made me think. I replied to Jessica's email expressing my sorrow that she felt that way, stating that I did not share her feelings and wishing her well. Then I blocked her, and haven't spoken to her since. I don't regret my decision. Story 13. One of my favorite friends was getting married and looking for a house. He wanted to rent in a specific place and had a decent budget. I found him exactly what he wanted, which, due to certain must-haves, was an older house built in the 1960s. As required by New York state law, I provided lead paint disclosures when I do a rental agreement and lease. Even beforehand, I mail a pamphlet about lead. It's a state requirement. My friend had no children or pets, so there was no risk of anyone chewing on walls or windows. Lead can be found in paint sometimes, but it's not a significant health risk unless there are certain at-risk activities or individuals on the premises, or pending major construction. At the lease signing, he brought up the lead paint disclosure and the possibility that there might be lead paint in the windowsill or window areas, so his wife told him to chill out because he was making it an issue at the signing. His wife asked me my opinion and I said she was right. They should just relax and he was overreacting a bit. He took this to heart, moved in and never said anything to me again. Recently he had a kid. I loved this guy, and our families had been close growing up. I never answered his phone again. In another instance, during an argument, my friend told me that she came to my dad and stepmom's wedding because she knew I was missing my mom. My mom passed away 2 years before my dad got remarried, but my parents had been separated for 10 years before final rest. Yes, I was missing my mom, but I had invited her because she was a good friend and I wanted her there to celebrate with us, not so she could act like a surrogate mother or whatever was going through her head. I went from needing some space to ending the friendship quickly after that. She was older and I, and my mother, became good friends from the concert scene we were a part of. But she got oddly clingy after my mom passed away, and that was what made me say no more. I had another friend, my own age, who apparently had a lot of resentment and jealousy pent up. which I had no idea about until it all went up one day. She was upset that I was able to go to shows and do other fun things in my city, and she was never able to. She told me I didn't understand my privilege. I get it. I'm lucky to live where I do and go to $10 to $15 shows fairly often. I also took advantage of free admission evenings at some museums when I had more time. However, I moved out of the town we'd gone to school together in and back to my hometown because of the loss of my mother. I had to explain to her that coming back wasn't my choice and that I was back home because I'd lost a parent and had to move in with the other one. We'd had plans to go to a hockey game together later that week, but she backed out because she thought I didn't respect her. So I was out the $85 I'd spent on the tickets. I'm still confused about all that. I totally understand where she was coming from, but she came to my city multiple times to do things without me, which never bothered me at all. Yet she was apparently upset that I lived here and she couldn't. Again, out of my control, and she knew that. If she had spoken to me, it would have been a non-issue, but she never did. That friendship hurts to lose. A friendship built upon jealousy will never be a long one. Story 14. My friend group wanted to sign up for an Overwatch tournament and asked me if I wanted to take part, as I used to play this game a lot with them. I said no because I wasn't feeling like dedicating myself to something like this and sweating in a game I don't like playing anymore. They still put me down as an active team member so that in case someone doesn't show up, I could sub for them. I didn't know that. And then one Friday, they just messaged me saying they really needed me to play the next day. So I had to wake up at 9 a.m. on a Saturday to play because one of their friends just decided he wasn't going to show up. I agreed because I thought they were my friends and it was important for them. I didn't want to let them down. Only 2 people showed up to train, and I had to wait until 1 p.m. for the match to start, and then played for an hour and a half. Then the same thing happened the next week. I said something about them not respecting my time and my choice not to play, but they all made it sound like a joke and just brushed it off. They also told me we were going to play against a team who's way higher in skill than us, and I suggested it would be a waste of time and we shouldn't do it. They argued and said it'd at least be good practice. When the time came to play, we were totally losing, and all of my friends were mad, telling me I wasn't healing them enough and overall being very salty. I snapped and said something along the lines of, "I told you we shouldn't have played today." And one of the guys snapped back by saying that just because I'm not good enough to play against them doesn't mean the rest are, and I just need to learn to play better. At this point, I've had enough and told them all what I think about the situation, their skill level and how they disrespected my time and used me when they needed me without prior warning, how they ignored my decision not to play in general and signed me up anyway. And during my speech, they were just laughing, talking over me, saying how I was overreacting and being too emotional over nothing. I finally realized that those people have zero respect towards me. They don't care about me, and I didn't want to dedicate myself to that friend group anymore. I removed myself from every server and group chat, removed myself from the team roster on the tournament website, unfriended everyone individually. I secretly hoped that they would apologize after all because I really thought they valued me as a friend. That was wrong. It's a bit sad, losing several friends and gaming buddies at once, but ultimately they weren't the people worth being upset about. Story 15. A good friend, my best friend for 15 years, with whom I'd made many weekend trips all across the world, invited himself for 3 months on my trip of a lifetime. I say invited himself in the sense that he said he'd taken some time off from work to join me, without asking if I was okay with that. I couldn't really say no, but I did point out this was my trip of a lifetime and I'd really had a sort of a plan. He was okay with that. He joined me in Thailand, where I'd been for a week, building up a great group of friends. He just didn't fit in there. People noticed and tried to talk with him. He didn't want to, not with me either. I decided to leave the big city and travel north. Maybe this would cheer him up. No, the bus was awful. The beds were hard, the weather too warm, the scenery too industrial, the hike too slow, etc. I let him be for a few days, hoping he'd turn around. Nope. We had a few good moments, but he never contributed any positivity. Just kept turning everything down and didn't really suggest alternatives that would make him happy when asked. After a few weeks, he gave up. I told him he needed to open up or I'd be going on alone. He didn't, so I went. This is almost 2 years ago and I haven't spoken to him since. On the one hand, I feel bad. He was a friend who didn't have any other friends. Maybe I should have tried harder. On the other hand, I'd saved for this since my teens. Will never be able to do that again and felt I deserved more respect from my friend than constant rejection and negativity. Story 16. This happened about 13 years ago. My friend and I from high school decided to be roommates in university. Let's call her Alice, and I'll be Janet. We got along really well, enjoyed the same TV shows, both were pretty focused on school and studying, and we didn't feel the need to always be in each other's space. Generally, I thought we got along really well as roommates. Eventually, I bought a house and invited her and my boyfriend to move in. It was a big house. We seemed to all get along well. One night we went out to the bar with a group of her friends that I didn't hang out with too much. Like I said, we didn't feel the need to always be together. So she had a different friend group from high school that I wasn't super close to, which was totally fine, because we got along without issue. I had let her borrow a necklace of mine that went really great with her outfit for the night. While we were at the bar, I went to the bathroom, and while I was finishing up in the stall, I heard one of Alice's friends at the sink say, "Ooh, I really like your necklace. It's so cute." Then I hear Alice say, "Yeah, Jenna let me borrow it. Don't worry, I washed it first." I was floored and hurt and walked out of the stall dumbfounded. I can't remember if her friend was still there, but Alice was. I think I said, "Wow, that was, great." I walked out. She found me later at the bar and apologized. I was hurt and couldn't help but assume she often talked bad about me behind my back with those friends. So after that, we simply drifted apart. She eventually moved out. We've talked a couple of times since then, but I'm still hurt by what happened. Story 17. When I was 15, my family moved houses to a city just adjacent to our old city. As a teenager, it was nice because I made new friends as well as continued to see friends from my old city. My parents were having a bit of difficulty selling their house, despite it having a lot of attractive qualities for young families. Anyway, I had one friend from my old city who I hang out with a lot on weekends. We'll call him Fenton. Fenton and I had been engaging in weekend activities for a while, and Fenton decided we should throw a party. Well, Fenton doesn't have a place to throw a party, so he suggests I take the spare keys to my family's house. Obviously, I tell him that's not happening. I didn't care how much teenage me wanted to party. I wasn't going to betray my family like that, especially after how the market affected them. Fenton didn't like that I said no, but reluctantly dropped the subject after realizing it wouldn't budge. Months later, my parents get a call from their realtor, who's talking frantically and sounds stressed. She had a property showing that morning for a family who was very interested in her house, so my parents were excited. The realtor shows up to the house a few hours before to set some stuff up and walks into a house with shattered windows, puddles, and stains. After doing some investigating with the neighbors, we get a description of the cars and people who were seen at the house the night before. The cars described fit the description of all of Fenton's friends' cars. I come to my parents and reluctantly tell them my suspicions. I didn't speak to Fenton after that. Story 18. I had a friend who I had practically grown up with. From age 13 onwards, we would see each other at least once a week. We often had dinner at each other's houses and sleepovers. When high school finished, our paths began to diverge. Although we would still remain friendly and he was still a part of my overall friend group, I was determined to finish university and get into a good career. He took 7 years to complete his undergraduate degree and never worked a day in the field, preferring instead to work part-time, stacking shelves at the supermarket and doing grass all day. This I honestly had no problem with, as I partake myself, and each to their own when it comes to personal ambition. Little did I know it wasn't the only thing he did, but instead he was slowly but surely getting used to other things. This made his behavior erratic at times, but I assumed the behavior was just his boredom or trying to be funny, so I let it slide. This was until one day in particular. I had just broken up with my girlfriend of 5 years and we weren't exactly on speaking terms. She had messaged me early in the morning saying my friend had sent her a very suspicious message. Basically, it was a picture with some disgusting text asking her, now that we were no longer together, would she want to get with him. I relayed this to my friend group and some of the girls in our group had received similar messages. There was also a thread in a Girls of Our City Facebook group that had hundreds of comments describing the same messages sent from my now ex-friend to people he didn't even know personally. Some of them shocked me, including videos of him. Needless to say, I lost one of my oldest friends that day. No one else in my friend group will talk to him either, so he basically lost everyone close to him. A year or so later, his family reached out to us as he had been taken and placed in a facility. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. Catch you in that video.